Mondrak was born from a world that had already been devoured by the machinery of a greater force, a force that didn't know how to stop. New Phyrexia, a plane once called Mirrodin, had been reshaped into something grotesque, something unrecognizable to anyone who remembered what it had been. The land itself had transformed, bending and twisting under the weight of Phyrexian domination, until even the mountains weren't what they once were. No longer just towering peaks of stone, they became the Domini, massive godlike Phyrexian creatures, each a mountain-sized monument to Phyrexia's all-consuming hunger. Mondrak was one of them, but what made the Domini different wasn't just their size or their grotesque forms. It was something deeper, something unsettling that no one could fully understand. No one knew what Mondrak or the other Domini thought. Did they even think in the way other Phyrexians did? Did they desire, did they crave in that same relentless, hollow way? Or were they just extensions of Phyrexia's will, mindless vessels carrying out orders they didn't comprehend? It was impossible to say, and perhaps that was the most terrifying part. Mondrak itself emerged from the heart of the fair basilica, a place that should have been sacred but had long since been corrupted. The spires of the basilica had birthed Mondrak, her form woven together from the material of New Phyrexia itself. She wasn't just a creature, she was the embodiment of the twisted, unrelenting transformation of the world around her. But unlike anything natural, Mondrak was a horror designed to inspire awe and terror in equal measure. Mondrak didn't need to speak, not in any way that could be recognized. Instead, her dozens of mouths, grotesque and unnatural, were in constant motion, producing hymns that no living creature should ever hear. The sound was a keening wail, a siren song that cut through flesh and bone and reached into the mind. It wasn't just a song of Phyrexia's might, it was a call to assimilate, a call to surrender. It pulled at the very essence of any living thing that heard it, urging them to give up their resistance, to allow themselves to be consumed and remade in Phyrexia's image. Mondrak didn't just compel with words, she compelled with an almost primal force. She was a creature designed to dismantle the self, to erase any concept of individuality in favor of unity. But not a unity born from connection or shared purpose. This was a unity that destroyed, that replaced, that broke apart everything that made a person who they were. In Mondrak's presence, there was no room for doubt. You would become Phyrexian, or you would be nothing. The planeswalkers of the Gatewatch had heard rumors of creatures like Mondrak, colossal, almost godlike beings that patrolled New Phyrexia, but they hadn't encountered one in person until the assault on New Phyrexia. That was when they stumbled upon her, or something like her. They didn't know for certain what they were looking at. Was it Mondrak herself, or simply another of Phyrexia's monstrosities? Either way, it was enough to make even the most hardened among them hesitate. It happened on the bridge that stretched across the fair basilica. There, blocking the path like some monstrous sentinel, was a Phyrexian colossus that seemed too massive, too bizarre to exist. It didn't move, not at first. It just stood there as if daring them to approach. But its presence was almost unbearable. The air around it felt charged, like a storm that had yet to break. They could feel its weight, its looming threat, even from a distance. Its head, if you could call it that, was shaped like an inverted teardrop of white metal. The center of that head was split by a single empty red socket that burned with a quiet intensity, watching them, though it had no eyes. It didn't need them. The socket alone was enough to make the planeswalkers feel as though they were being seen, being assessed, being judged, and found lacking. Its body was hunched, twisted into a form that didn't belong in the natural world. Nothing about it made sense. Its shape defied logic, its limbs too elongated, too wrong, to have once been anything close to human or Phyrexian for that matter. It was something else entirely. For all its grotesque grandeur, there was something almost tragic about Mondrak. Trapped in that massive, contorted form, she wasn't just a predator or a monster. She was a symbol of what Phyrexia had become. A place where nothing could remain untouched, where everything, even the land itself, was consumed and twisted until it was unrecognizable. There was no escape from it, no sanctuary, not even for something as powerful as Mondrak. The Gatewatch didn't have time to linger. They couldn't afford to stay on that bridge, staring up at the colossal figure that blocked their way. The war for New Phyrexia was already underway, and every second they spent there was a second they didn't have. But they wouldn't forget Mondrak. No one could. Perhaps Mondrak would remember them too, if Mondrak was even capable of memory in the way they understood it. But that was the thing about New Phyrexia, about creatures like Mondrak. It wasn't about understanding, it wasn't about logic or reason, it was about survival, about the instinct to consume, to assimilate, to spread. Mondrak didn't care what you were or where you came from. She only cared about one thing, that you would become part of her, part of Phyrexia, that you would cease to exist in any way that mattered. And in the end, wasn't that the true horror? Not the monstrosity of Mondrak's form, not the grotesque hymn she sang with her endless mouths, but the knowledge that she could erase you, that Phyrexia could erase you, and no one would ever remember you had been anything different. No one, not even Mondrak herself.